there's a few things that I want to touch on for sure. Obviously there's been news today of the abuse that was aimed at Phil Foden in yesterday's game, which I'm going to touch on. Obviously, there's a few things I want to say about that one, but we'll go into that at the end. Obviously, Patrick Dorgu, Garnacho, I want to discuss as well the relationship there, and Manuel Ugarte. It wasn't too long ago people were singing Ugarte's praise. Is he someone now that is a waste of a signing? So I want to get into that, and of course Ruben Amorim. Guys, where are you at with Ruben Amorim? Because to be honest with you, I'm starting to have my concerns with regards to Ruben Amorim, and for me, he is someone that I'm not too sure. I want Amorim as Man United manager going forwards. I'll have to be honest, but let me know your thoughts, guys. Let me know your thoughts as well on the Man United game and Man City as well. So I'm just gonna go through the performances of all the Man United team. Again, United drawing 0-0 in what has to be described as the worst Manchester derby in recent years. For me, I would go as far in that's arguably one of the worst games of the season in terms of quality. And again, Man United, obviously coming into the game in 13th position, they wasn't going to open up against Man City because again, United haven't got the quality to go and do that. And again, they would have preferred City coming onto them and then try and catch them in the transition on the counter-attack, And for me, as I said, the quality of both teams was concerning, And so I'm trying to say the Premiership, the Premiership now is boring. It's mundane. It's been like that for a while now. And again, as I said yesterday, too many times you're hearing Premier League is the best league in the world, but what they don't tell you is the most exciting league in terms of competitiveness, in terms of quality, it's arguably one of the worst. Big up Charlotte Campbell. Big up for coming on. Guys, I said, if you're in there, make sure you smash that like button and make sure you subscribe to my channel at Gav Goes In. So, as I said, that game yesterday was for me an absolute joke. And, you hear the likes of these pundits at the end of the game, Gary Neville's, Roy Keane's, and what I have to say on those two is that these guys are always late to the party. They're always late to the party because it's like there's been an issue with Premier League football for a while now. So when Gary Neville's saying that the game yesterday was boring, it's like, where have you been? Because these things have been happening for time. And arguably, the likes of Gary Neville, the media, they're a problem for them in general, and they're arguably the biggest reasons as to why football has become the way it has. These guys, big up Charlotte. So Gary Neville, talking about football. So these guys, you see their face all over the place, and people that as I said, that don't really follow football too much, they would hang on their every word. Guys, if you're just coming through, obviously it's a football channel, so we're just talking about Manchester United's game yesterday with Man City, the Manchester derby, which was possibly one of the worst games I've ever seen this season. And we're going to talk on a few subjects because there's a few things that I want to get to. There's going to be a few controversial things as well that people probably want to shy away from. But again, we're looking to get into that. For me, as I said, in terms of the performance for United, listen, DXR, man, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, man. I've been saying this before I had a platform. I've been saying this for a while. The likes of these pundits, the media, they're the problems. They're doing a disservice to people that actually have watched football either all their life or played, and if you're a newcomer to football, or you're not really invested in it as much, my advice to you is don't hang on these guys' words because these guys are doing you a disservice, again, if you love the game, you know. And as I said, United, you know, United will come away from that game gutted, I would say, because let's face it, Manchester City were poor, and Manchester City as well. You know, they, as I mentioned yesterday, they're gonna need to have a serious think in terms of what players they need to be bringing in. You know, because that squad needs revamping. And as I said, we've been hearing over the last few days, you know, is Kevin De Bruyne the best midfielder in the Premier League era? Again, if you go and check my my previous content, you know, I've done through the international break, I've done the best players in their position in the Premier League era. So from goalkeeper, right back, centre back, centre mid, number 10, left wing, right wing, striker. So if you check that out, guys, you'll see who I went for. Yeah, big up DXR, bro. Big up for coming on. Big up for subscribing as well, guys. Again, if you're in it and you're enjoying the content, make sure you subscribe to my channel and you smash that like button. Again, you're not forced to be here, but again, if you do like real football talk, then this is the place for you. Again, if you've got WWE wrestling that you enjoy, boxing, UFC, then yeah, be sure to put that in the chat. And as I said, once I've gone through what I'm going through, I will definitely get back to your questions and to your comments. But big up everyone. Yeah, big up Charlotte Campbell. As I said, if you don't want to sub, that's entirely up to you. You know, you're not forced to be here, as I said. But I said, if you do enjoy the content, then make sure you you smash that like button and you are subscribing. So as I said, I think with Man United yesterday, for me, you know, that first half again was an absolute joke. And yeah, DXR, don't worry, man. I'll get back to your messages in a minute. But yeah, I've got my regular moderator on it at the moment. But yeah, big up, man. I will get back to your comment in a bit. So yeah, what I would say is that Man that first half, you can see by the way United set up. And again, this is why I'm looking at Amorim sideways, because for too long I've been saying, you know, and just like many others, the front three that he started with is nothing short of a disgrace, because you're just letting the opposition know you haven't got any intention to play good football, you know. And the thing is, to start with Garnacho, Hoyland, and Bruno as a front three, you know, it's more of a case where this manager, as I keep saying, to me, I just look at him as another. He's no better than Ten Hag, and Ten Hag is someone that I wanted out. And the thing is, he's playing the same players. The same players don't come off. And again, you know, you've decided to, you know, won't go back onto it too much, but you've decided to let certain players go, and this is what you're left with now. So you can't really complain. But to be honest with you, the fact that he's going with that front three, what do you expect? He's going with legs, you know, players that run around. And again, this is a crying shame in football now, that football is littered with players that are more athletes than actual football players. And this is why the game's gone shit, because there's no individual quality anymore. You know, we watched that game yesterday, Manchester Derby, and I'm hearing people giving Bruno Fernandes praise. And again, this just shows you where football's at, because Bruno Fernandes is getting praised because he's just doing the basics a lot more better than he has been, you know. And then again, it's one of them things where you've got the likes of a Bernardo Silva, who's for me has declined, and he's a proper football player. He's declined. Phil Foden, as I mentioned, which I'll get onto later as well. Phil Foden again has regressed. You know, he's not the player that people thought he was going to be. Maybe you can say, is it Pep that's coached it out of him? You know, just like Grealish. Look at Man United's team. The only player with real quality on that pitch for United is Joshua Zirkzee. Everyone else is just, obviously, I'm not talking about the defenders, but I'm talking about in the midfield or attacking wise. You know, isn't good enough. And then you look at Man City. Omar Marmoush, I think, is a good player, but again, he's quite new and he's trying to feel his way into the lineup. Kevin De Bruyne is finished, as I said about Foden already. Jeremy Doku isn't good enough, really. Bernardo Silva's regressed. That whole team from both sides is just poor. And guys, I will get back into your comments after. I'm just gonna finish off what I'm saying. But as I said, Man United, they would come away from this game, usually, I would say, over the last 10 years, satisfied with a point. But I think how badly City performed, United would have thought they should have won that game. And it just shows you how poor both teams are, because there was a few chances created, but the quality of both teams just ain't there. And Man United as much as Man City, Man City as much as Man United, shall I say, they need to really invest. And again, I've spoken about Florian Wirtz. Florian Wirtz is the ideal replacement for De Bruyne with more quality. And he is someone that Man City, if they're being serious, they need to go and invest in him in the summer. And again, he's someone I want at Man United, but that ain't going to happen. So, he's a Barcelona type player, but I don't see Barca going for him with their finances. So if Man City got anything about them, Man City go and get him, because he's the ideal signing for them to replace De Bruyne, who's leaving at the end of the season. But yeah, there's a few things, guys, I want to get into, but I'm going to go through your comments. But big up everyone for coming on. As I said, if you enjoy the stream, guys, it's not much to ask. Just press that like button. And as I said, make sure you subscribe to my channel and check out my other content, guys. So let's go through it. Yeah, KDB is, so DXR says KDB is leaving, right? Yeah, KDB is leaving at the end of the season. To be honest with you, it wasn't a surprise, because Kevin De Bruyne has declined massively. He has no influences on Man City really no more. And I'd arguably say he's more of a passenger now. They're just carrying him through games. So yeah, he's definitely going. Big up Ayush Sonny. Big up City Kumero, I think it is. Yeah, Charlotte, man. If that likes WWE, man, as I said, if you got any questions about WWE, yeah, make sure you throw that in the chat, man. DXR says, fam, you need to get a moderator as well as you grow. Yeah, big up DXR. As I said, if you guys do enjoy my content, and you're regulars in the channel, then obviously, yeah, we could look at obviously making you guys a moderator. So I've got a moderator already. That's a regular. He's not on at the moment, but he's usually on every day with me. So as I said, yeah, if you are a regular, and as I said, you've got some positive comments that you put in the chat, then for sure, as I said, maybe you can look at putting yourself as a moderator. But big up the XR, man. Big up yourself. So Campbell says, sorry, big up CYM as well. So Charlotte Campbell says, you look like Thanos from Squid Game 2. Thanos from Squid Game 2. Okay. I know Thanos is what is it, Marvel? But I think he was in Squid Game. But big up yourself, Charlotte. So DXR says Amorim ain't the one. The way he replies to these questions, low key, make it sound like he is a plant. Yeah, big up DXR, bro. What I would say, I was so relieved that Ten Hag got sacked. And when United were looking at Amorim, again, for me, Amorim wasn't my top target. I wanted Roberto De Zerbi. My top target, even before Ten Hag and before Solskjaer, was Zidane. But Zidane was never going to come, because again, Zidane would have needed a ready-made team, obviously, because he didn't want to tarnish his legacy, which is understandable. But yeah, Zidane was my preferred option. But then when Ten Hag came in, again, after Oli, it was more of a relief. Then when Ten Hag started doing his thing, I wanted that guy out desperately. And then Amorim coming in, again, I wanted the Zerbi from what was available. But Amorim, I thought, you know what? Ten Hag's gone, but I'm happy with Amorim. And again, Amorim hasn't got his players, which people keep telling you. But what people need to realise is that there ain't no manager in world football, yeah, other than Pep, you would say, other than Klopp when he was there, that is going to get a whole new 11. That ain't gonna happen because, for a start, you have to buy time. When you're at the club, you have to prove that you've got something going on with this team in order for you to get your signings over the line. And for me, Amorim isn't doing a good job with the players he has anyway. You know, I think personally, if Amorim was getting better performances, you know, even though these players aren't good enough, but if you're meant to be a top coach, as what was meant to be, he was hired for, to be getting a lot more out of these players. And for me, I can't tell you if there's one player that I think has improved. I just think that the players that are performing well, they've had that in their game anyway. You know, I can't see him improve. I can't see he's improved anyone. You know, and the thing is, the worst thing for him is that he's taking United backwards from what Ten Hag had United doing, which is a massive problem. And for me, why would Ineos trust him with the money when he's proven that he can't really get better out of these players? And again, these players are not good enough, but if you want to be a good coach, you should be coaching them to be better, which is just obvious. So the thing for me, again, and I keep saying it, if he doesn't win this Europa League and United finish as low as 15th, because that is a distinct possibility, you have to get rid of him. Why would, if Ineos keep him beyond this season, I don't know what's going on, because for me, you can't come in and take over a team that was 4 points off of the top four, and now they find themselves in 13th place. And again, they're going to be dropping again because the games they got coming up, you know, are not easy games, and they're sandwiched in between Europa League. So for me, yeah, for me, I think he needs to win this Europa League for sure. You know, if he was to lose the Europa, get knocked out of Europa League, finish 15th, I think his position will be untenable, because that is unacceptable, regardless if he hasn't got the players or not. But I think if he was to win Europa League and not and finish, let's say he finished 15th and win Europa League, I will say he probably does deserve the start of the season, you know, because you win Europa League, get the money in for the club. Obviously, Champions League, they're not doing nothing in there, but it's just money. So I would say he deserved the start of the season. But if he loses Europa, finishes 15th, he has to go for me. Or even if he was to lose Europa and finish 13th, I still think he has to go. You know, the Europa is, for me, for how the teams were performing, it's all or nothing. You know, and that's what I wanna say here. But yeah, big up DXR. So DXR says, like just placed there by the billionaire owners for damage control. Yeah, man. I mean, obviously, I'm not here really to be talking about to be talking about the Glazers and this and that, because again, the Glazers have been a problem for years, and they were a problem under Alex Ferguson, and they're only a massive problem now because the club are not doing too well. And again, they're a massive problem, but so is the whole strategy of players recruited and managers that have been recruited as well. So there's massive problems with the club. But yeah, it's gonna take a while yet. But I think the first thing is, if you have got like an Amorim in, I expected to see a lot more of Amorim. And to be honest with you, I'm fed up of Amorim now. And again, I'm questioning whether I want Amorim at the club still, because for me, I don't see him being any better than Ten Hag, and that's saying something, you know. Again, new system, you know, his player profiling as well of certain players is concerning, which is what I'm going to get onto in a minute. So DSR says Odegaard falling off too. Yeah, I mean, Odegaard is a neat footballer, but again, he's someone that, you know, he's someone that looks like he's doing a lot, but isn't really doing too much. You know what I mean? But if I'm comparing him as a pure footballer, I think he is a good footballer. There's no doubt in that. But I think football has dropped so much is that people are regarding Odegaard as one of the best players in Europe in his position, which again, he's a good footballer, but it just shows the levels dropped massively. So, listen, There's no way Odegaard's better than Ozil. Like people. And again, it shows you how football's dropped off because you've got Mesut Ozil, who was criticised heavily by his own fan base, criticised by the media, and they've gone from Ozil to Odegaard. Like Odegaard's not in the same stratosphere as Ozil. Ozil was at Real Madrid and starting for Real Madrid for a reason. You know what I mean? And Ozil was a top player, World Cup winner as well. You know, I believe he won Champions League with Real Madrid. I think. So yeah, there's no way Odegaard's better than Ozil. No way. Um, so where would Hugo the XR? Big up, bro. Where would Hugo? Yeah, big up had you. Big up for coming on. Um, so says so. Fam, Odegaard better turn up against Madrid. That's the home that he would. Yeah, I mean to be honest with you, like I've already had my say on the Real Madrid Arsenal game. I think when it really matters, Real Madrid, especially in Champions League, they'll get the job done. You know, and Odegaard, they rested him obviously against Everton. I expect him and Saka to start the game. I think him and Saka will start. But it's not going to be enough. You know what I mean? It's not going to be enough. Real Madrid will just get the job done because it's the experience and the know-how, you know. So I don't expect Odegaard to run the game. I expect to see him doing a lot more of what he has been doing, really. And that's looking pretty on the ball, but not really hurting the opposition when it really needs to, when it really matters. So yeah. Yeah, big up Charlotte Campbell, man. Big up Charlotte. So DXR says, I hate the media. They ruin player profiles. Let me tell you this, DXR, and I'm glad you're coming in with these sick questions as well. Yeah, and these comments. The media in this country, yeah, is a massive problem. And again, the media, and these pundits, they're a massive problem. Massive, massive problem. I don't know if you remember an player, right back called Paul Parker. Played in the Alex Ferguson era with Schmeichel. So Paul Parker actually lives in my area, and I see him the other day actually, and he was agreeing with me. You know, he does media work as well for Manchester United still, and he was telling me the media is not all that. You know, media are a massive problem. But I knew this, you know, and the media don't really understand football for one. You know, even a lot of these ex-professionals don't understand football for one either. You know, a lot of them are just giving their opinions based on how they felt about the game or, you know, what they were privy to in a sense. But a lot of them don't really understand the breakdown of football, you know, because, and this is what I'm going to get onto now as well. So, Patrick Dorgu and Garnacho problem, yeah? And again, it is a massive problem. And for me, it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise because, again, I've been doing streams where I've talked about Man United needing a left in this system that Amorim is playing. Man United needing a left wing back, someone that wants to dominate that side of the pitch. You know, so again, in terms of this system, you need athletes in that position. Which my two options, which were unrealistic, but you know, it's the kind of profile that you need. And it was Nuno Mendes at PSG and Alphonso Davies at Bayern Munich. So both players are both signed new contracts, so you're not getting them. So the next one was, in terms of that profile, was probably Patrick Dorgu, in terms of the pace, the strength. Now, this system, I keep saying, which, you know, people are aware of this, well, you should be aware of this anyway, is that if you're playing this system with a 3-4-2-1 and the two number 10s, you need the number 10. The number 10 is your, you know, you've got different creators. You've got players that are good in the half spaces that can create, like a Florian Wirtz, or you've got number 10s that are ball carriers, like you can say like a Semenyo, like a Cunha, or you've got a hybrid of both in terms of like an Eze, you know. So you can have either both of them, a hybrid, or one that is a creator in between the lines, or one that is a ball carrier. Yeah. The fact that this manager decides to play, and people will tell you he's got nothing else. You've got Christian Eriksen, who can play in as a 10, who is actually a 10. He's someone that can play as a left 10 in the half spaces, you know. Obviously, Ahmad is out injured. You know, Xerxes, I prefer Xerxes as a striker, but Xerxes can play as the 10. Kobe Minu, you know, wasn't playing there regularly when this manager was here. Can play as a left 10 in the half spaces, you know. So this manager, for some reason, is deciding to play a player who not only isn't good in a half space, not only is he not physically strong and has that kind of pace, which is a good ball carrier, he decides to play him as a right 10 or a left 10. Now, when you're playing Garnacho as a right 10, again, because he's going away from goal, he can just put a cross in and there isn't too much to think about. When you play him as a left 10, he thinks he's Ronaldo, you know, he thinks he's that guy. And again, I don't necessarily blame him. I blame this dumb fan base, because this fan base, along with the media, along with a lot of these pundits, ain't got a clue what's going on. And they've allowed someone like Garnacho to think that he is that player. So I don't really blame him too much, because he ain't good enough and never will be good enough. But he's believing his hype. And relationship with Dorgu down that left-hand side, it's not surprising, because he's very selfish for one. He plays as a winger anyway and occupies Dorgu's space. And he's not a player that wants to link with a Dorgu, because he hasn't got that kind of skill set. So when people are saying Garnacho, all of a sudden now, they're not rating Garnacho, it's like, where have you been? Because Garnacho has never been good enough, but people didn't see it because they didn't really see the game properly. And for me, watching this guy play week in, week out, and again, I blame Amorim, because Amorim is deciding to play these players, you know. If I'm manager of Man United and I don't rate a player, you're not going to play, you know what I mean? Or if a player doesn't suit my system, you just change it up. You try different things. But this manager is persisting playing with this player. And then you get people saying, you know, Garnacho ain't it. Well, he's never been it. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Where have you been? Because he has no interest in linking up with Dorgu, because he hasn't got that kind of intelligence or the skill set to even do that. And this goes back to having the right profiles in that position. Because if you've got a left wing back, Patrick Dorgu, who wants to bomb up at the line, it's ideal for a number 10 who's a pure creator, because you can either play Dorgu in, who's going to be there all the time, or you can play into your striker or link with the midfield. So these are just little things like having a profile of player. And the fact that Garnacho and Dorgu haven't got that relationship, that was obvious. You know, Xerxes would have a better relationship if he played there with Dorgu. Why is that? Because Xerxes' skill set as in that position would allow him and Dorgu to connect, in terms of him playing Dorgu through and then him getting in the half spaces on the turn. That would work. So again, I don't know why people seem a bit surprised that this Dorgu and Garnacho problem is there. You know what I mean? It was never going to work, you know. And again, just moving forwards, this Garnacho guy needs to be moved on in the summer. If anyhow this guy remains at the club again next season, you know, Man United can forget about it. They can forget about it, because him and Rasmus Højlund especially, which again, I'm not going to get onto Højlund, because if you've been watching my channel, you'll know my thoughts on this player. And this player is the worst striker in the league. He's the worst striker I've seen at Man United. That's how bad he is. You know, I can't tell you what he does right. And him and Garnacho, they need to be moved on in the summer. But again, this will show me what Ineos are on, because between the manager and between those two players, we'll see what's really going on. Because yeah, I think for too long we've been watching this nonsense, and it's coming to a point now where it's just frustrating to watch, you know. And that moves me on to Manuel Ugarte. You know, when Ugarte was signed, you know, there was a massive, massive excitement that Ugarte was signed, you know. And the warning signs were there when Luis Enrique, who, if you follow Luis Enrique's career from Barcelona, even he was at Roma, you know, I'm talking about managing wise. Obviously, playing wise is at Barca as well. If you followed Luis Enrique's career as a manager, the guy likes pure football players. You know, he's very adaptable in his style as well. Very fluid. He likes actual ball players. So the fact that he was willing to let Ugarte go, even though PSG spent, I think, how much did PSG spend on him? I think they spent like 40, 50 mil, I think it might have been, from Sporting Lisbon. And the fact that he was willing to let him go should have been warning signs for United already. Because United were that starved because they needed a midfielder, someone that just gets around the pitch, you know. But you let Fred go, and to bring in Ugarte. And when Ugarte came in, you know, obviously he was poor under Ten Hag because obviously in terms of the high press that Ten Hag had these players doing, didn't really suit him. And the thing is now, Ugarte was in people's eyes having a decent performance, not in my eyes. I just think that with Ugarte, he was just getting praised because, again, people just like players that are just runners, you know. The quality side of it, people are not too interested in. And the problem is that with Ugarte, because he was winning the ball back, you know, and, you know, he was obviously having an impact for a lot of these fans in terms of that, they kind of thought that, you know, Ugarte has been a great signing. I'll tell you for free, there's a reason why PSG sold him, you know, because they see a dud. And that's what he is. He's just a workhorse. And if he, as I mentioned, it's not a problem. When you're starting this guy and then you're taking him off, you're more or less admitting that you fucked up, really, because there's no way that this guy should be starting the majority of Man United games, because in possession, he's arguably the worst player in the team in possession. That's how bad he is, you know. And again, look at this now. You've now got Casemiro, who again has always been good, you know, but he was a scapegoat, just like many other players. And now you've got Casemiro now, who's staying. So the manager's actually admitting that he's fucked up, really. And the club fucked up by getting this player anyway. I don't care what anyone says, you know, because if Man United are being serious, this Ugarte is not a starter. So to pay, how much do they pay? What? Upwards of 50 mil, I think it might have been, for Ugarte. To pay that amount of money, you know, you're more or less saying and if he's starting, expect Man United to be struggling, because he's nowhere near good enough. And you're now seeing it now, because when the pressure's on Man United to take the game to the opponents, he hasn't got the quality to do anything. He's just a bulldog that just wins the ball back. And again, to spend that amount of money on him is a problem, and he's a massive issue in this lineup. As a squad member, you know, if you're away from home and you want to defend the lead, I'm not too fussed with Ugarte. But if you're starting Ugarte in the majority of the games, there's massive problems there, massive problems. And again, this brings me back onto Amorim, because I've already gone through Amorim, so I won't go through it too much. But I'm losing massive hope and faith in this manager, because I thought things would be different than what Ten Hag was doing. But I must say, he's just doing exactly the same thing that Ten Hag was doing. Yeah, big up Charlotte Campbell, big up. He's doing exactly the same thing that Ten Hag was doing in terms of his stubbornness. You know, if you've got players that are not really adapting to your style, you know, you have to tweak it. You have to, if you're not getting the results. If you're just going to stick with the same old thing that's not working, you know, expect your head to be on the chopping board, because it ain't good enough. It's just not good enough. And yeah, big up means it's another word for saying thanks. So yeah, big up Charlotte Campbell, or acknowledging you, basically. Yeah, but big up yourself. But yeah, for me, Ruben Amorim, again, I've already mentioned it. He needs to win the Europa League starting with on the first leg on Thursday, because the league season's been an absolute joke. And yeah, and I can see Man United dropping further. So next league game's against Newcastle, and that's away from home, which is going to be a tough game. And again, that's going to be sandwiched in between the Europa League. So do I expect United to get 3 points there? I don't. because I think he will change the team as well. And again, you got to look at how United are going to get on this first leg, because if United get beat in this first leg, and then they got Newcastle game coming up, I reckon he's going to change at least three or four players to rest them. You would say against this in the second leg. 3 games are crucial. Starting with this Thursday is crucial, and Amorim again. You know, I'm not like people will say. You know, the result yesterday was good in comparison to how United played. That's a loser's mentality. That, you know, if Man United think, if some of these think that that was acceptable, then Man United really are struggling, and it just shows you that this club is a long way off. Because although Man City were poor, um, United quality weren't better. You know, and just that for a Manchester derby and an advertisement for a half-forward kickoff for the Premier League was an absolute joke. So yeah, man, it's madness. But guys, what I want to touch on, and again, give your comments if you even if you don't agree, you know what I mean. But give your comments in the chat. So Phil Foden abuse. So obviously today I've been hearing that, you know, obviously Man United fans were singing a song about Phil Foden's his mum, and again, and there's talk about, you know, these fans getting banned. And again, these fans are just idiotic fans, you know, abusing someone's mum like that. It's just no place. Unfortunately, these things are rife in football, unfortunately, because, you know, you can't kind of police every fan as the same. You know, you are going to get some fans that overstep the mark, because these guys ain't really fans. They're just there to just, you know, have a day out and just create a lot of nonsense, really, you know. But what I want to know, and again, I don't condone it. No one condones this abuse to his mum, etc. You know, and again, Phil Foden has dropped off, as I've mentioned. You know, he has dropped off, and he's regressed massively. He isn't the same player that He isn't the player that a lot of people thought he was going to be. But it doesn't condone the fact that these fans are giving, obviously, his mum abuse. But guys, what I want to say is, where was this talk when Paul Pogba was getting racially abused by his own fans? Where was the talk for this? And this is what I'm trying to say to you. You know, Phil Foden ain't right, but where was it? Where was the protection when Paul Pogba was getting racially abused? All we see was people uploading it to their feeds. You know, all we was getting was people uploading it to their feeds. You know, people mocking it as well, mimicking it. And all of a sudden, Phil Foden's mum gets abused, and, you know, we're now talking about bans. But when it was Paul Pogba getting racially abused, when it was Martial getting racially abused, Eric Bailly getting racially abused, Andre Onana, as poor as he is, getting racially abused. The talk from the media, where was the talk from these pundits about that? But yet, Phil Foden, you know, English, white, protection, you know, and this makes me sick about Premier League, English football as a whole. Because at the end of the day, abuse is abuse, you know, and no one deserves abuse. And the fact that Foden's mum's getting abused, and there's a big obviously conversation about it, but yet the likes of Paul Pogba, who is racially abused continuously, you know, doesn't get spoken about. Again, it just shows you. And what I want to say, these fans that are doing it, again, these fans that are doing it, again, these guys are not fans, you know. They're not fans, you know, and they're just trying to get under the skin of players, etc. Which, again, is part and parcel of football. But I just don't like the fact that Paul Pogba wasn't getting spoken about in terms of the protection for him in the racial abuse, you know, because there's abuse and then there's racial abuse. Racial abuse to me is a lot more worse than just normal abuse, you know, because abuse can just be anything which ain't true. But when you're racially abusing someone, You know, that ain't right. And as I said, where was Pogba's protection, along with a lot of other Man United players? You know, um, yeah, big up Maya. Yeah, big up Maya, big up DXR. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Foden's mum was getting abused yesterday by some Man United fans. Again, we don't condone that, but well, I don't condone it, should I say? But where was Paul Pogba protection? Because he was getting abused by his own fans, racially abused by his own fans. You know, um, yeah, yeah, of course. Podcast, right? Well, the thing is, it's not. I don't think it's much the podcast. I think it's a lot of these fans. You know, they're just it for the wrong reasons for me. You know, their kind of idea is, you know, getting pissed up on the weekend and going to these games, not really watching the game. You know, but their idea is to just abuse. You know, and create like a whole lot of noise. Really, that's what I call it. You know, these are not really football fans. They're just there to just, you know, they're just there they're there for their own benefit of just creating a toxic environment. Really, that's what I would say. And but yeah, he says, yeah. So DXR says yes. English football is hella racist. I think what the problem is. What the problem is, you've got the media, who are, as I said, who are a massive problem. You know, you've got journalists who are a massive problem. A lot of the pundits play into it as well. And fans that are just not fans of football, that are fans of the club, they feed into it as well. You know, um, so this is the problem. You know, these are the people that need serious looking at, because they feed all these narratives. You know, because I'll give you an example. I'll give an example. You know, obviously you've heard about the when Phil Foden bought, obviously, his mum a mansion, I think it was, and then you had the Raheem Sterling, or was it Tosin Adarabioyo, similar stories, you know, and they made it seem as if one person's flash or whatever, and the other person's doing a good thing for his mum. Like all these things these are all narratives that the media play onto. You know, there's loads of things, man. There's loads of things. I remember there was like, even when they say about certain players, you know, if you check it, like Anthony Martial was always labeled as lazy, you know, and this is connotations with black players anyway. You know, they're good when the sun's out, but in the cold winters they don't want none of it. You know, these are connotations that have stuck with black players. You know, and these are the narratives that media try to push. You know, it's always the same players that are lazy. You know, and this tag, um, this tag is just nonsense. It's just nonsense, you know, and it's been going on for way too long. Like if you look at what's his name, Jadon Sancho, he gets the same thing. You know, Jadon Sancho is often criticized by not just Man United fan base, but is criticized by the wider media, because they perceive him as being someone that doesn't really care. He's flash, he's lazy. How about he's just his own person? How about that? You know, not everyone's the same. You know, Lewis Skelly as well. They'll if Lewis Skelly carries on with the way that he is in terms of showing his personality, which is a great thing, the media will soon kill him. Don't worry about that. His time will come. You know, because these things have been going on for way too long, way too long. And there's a reason why they liked N'Golo Kante. They liked N'Golo Kante because they took pity on N'Golo Kante, because N'Golo Kante wasn't someone in their eyes that was flash or out there. You know, I think there was a story that they used to drive a Mini Cooper or something like that. Like these people love these stories, you know, and the fact that he was quiet, well, you know, these people love these things, because it's like they can control them in a sense, and they'll feel sorry for them. But if you're a black player, especially with anyone that's got any kind of personality, you know, they're gonna kind of try and put you down. That's so. Just going back onto the phone, no one condones that, but I want to hear where these people were when Pogba was getting racially abused, amongst others. You know, because I'm not hearing too much, and this is a massive problem in football for me. You know, and it's going to continue happening, the abuse, whether it's racial or normal abuse, because there's too much money in football now, and the authorities, if they really wanted to stamp down on it, they could have done something time ago, and they haven't. So I don't know why people are getting in a massive uproar about the Phil Foden abuse. Unfortunately, these things are going to happen, you know, because until they start coming down and cracking on these people for real, it's going to be the same old thing. Let's be honest, and you know, there's a long way to go in terms of, you know, these things happening, you know. So yeah, that's what I want to say, man. But guys, anyone got anything else to say before I wrap? You know, again, these things need to be spoken about. I'm here for that, man. So even if you don't agree with me, as I said, put that in the comments, put that in the chat, sorry, and let me know your views. Guys, big up everyone for coming on as well, you know. Big up everyone for coming on. So yeah, as I said, Patrick Dorgu and Garnacho problem. It's not surprising. These things have been happening for a while. Manuel Ugarte, you know, you look at it now, what a waste of a signing, you know. And again, even if people don't think Ugarte was a waste of a signing, guys, season, if Man United wanna be a more cohesive team, he can't be starting. I'm sorry, he can't. He can't be starting. Like, he ain't good enough. And Ruben Amorim as well, as I mentioned. Yes, Gamer. Big up Reluctant Gamer for coming on. Yeah, big up for coming on, Reluctant Gamer. Yeah, Amorim. He's got it all to do, man, on Thursday for sure. And the Phil Foden abuse. Phil Foden abuse. As I said, where was that's what I got to say about that, man. But big up on. So before we wrap, Gamer, what do you reckon about Newcastle and Leicester game tonight? I'm gonna go 4-1 Newcastle. I'm gonna go 4-1. I think Isak gets a couple. I think Gordon might be back as well. But I'm gonna say 4-1 Newcastle, and that will take them, I believe, into fourth position. I believe. I think it might be. You're going 2-0. Okay. Away from home. I think Leicester. I would say I'll go as far as saying I think Leicester have partly given up. So I think if that's the case, I can see Newcastle just steamrolling them. I think if Newcastle get a couple of goals in the first half, I think it can be a 4-1 game, you know, but 2-0 seems like a bit of a decent result as well. A prediction, should I say. But I think 4-0. I think 4-1, I would say. But yeah, bro, big up for coming on. As I said, obviously been live for 48 minutes, for 49 minutes. So yeah, obviously try and give it a watch back and check discussing. But yeah, guys, big up yourselves for coming on. Smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And as I said, make sure you got your notification to see when I go live. And big up for coming on again. And yeah, Gamer, bro, no worries, man. As I say, you come on all the time. Yeah, no problem, man. When you can, as I said. But as I said, yeah, try and give it a watch back if you can. I'm gonna put it into some chapters as well because there's some good bits on there. So I'll be doing that a bit later. Yeah, no, I wasn't on at 12 today, man. I had a few things to do. So at the moment, I'm not. I think normally I'll try and come on at 12 or 12:30, but I'm not scheduling a time at the moment because I'm a bit busy at the moment. But yeah, I said if you got your notification on, man, then you'll see why I go live. But yeah, I will be putting it into some chapters just to there's some bits that obviously I spoke about, and as I say, if you get a watch. But yeah, guys, big up for coming on. Big up Gamer every time, and let's hope Newcastle. You know, because I do like Newcastle. I do think Newcastle deserve to be in Champions League. You know, Eddie Howe's done a great job for them. They got some good players as well, most notably Isak, and I do think that they deserve to be in the top four. And again, I want to see them some players in the summer for sure. But yeah, win 4-1 tonight, I reckon. Or if not, you know, 2-0 as what Gamer said. But yeah, big up for coming on, guys. Smash that like button, subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you guys in a bit. Take it easy.